Hi, I'm Petra. That's what.
Hey, Petra. Hi.
What does it mean to be a spiritual person in the midst of the craziness of our, just our life these days? Whether it's raising children, going to work, having to deal with the pandemic, or our political situation.
Really practical ways to tap into spirituality. Science of Mind has done that for me, and I'm excited to be doing this work with Oscar and Petra to show you how you can get into your own spiritual ebb and flow and and say what? Live the life that you really want to live.
We're going to put hot topics, current events like meditation, law of attraction, and manifestation, all this stuff that you have questions about, that I have questions about. We're going to spin the wheel, and then wherever it lands is what we're going to talk about that day.
So we'll hope you'll join us on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. for Say What on YouTube Live.
All right. Oh, here we go. Hello, everybody. Yay. Welcome to Say What. Yay. So happy. Okay. Hang on, let me transition to, there we go. All right, now we're all set to go.
Yay.
All right, thank you for joining us, you guys. So, we apologize that we weren't able to be with you all last week. I'm sure that you all have read or have heard that last week was a rather special time for the state of Texas and for, all over the Midwest as well. But a lot of us were affected by the storm. So let's just talk about our experiences with that. So yeah, Shakera, do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's cool with me, Oscar. Oh my goodness, our power went out around like Sunday evening, Monday morning. I don't even know when we got it back, because by the grace of the good Lord, okay, my auntie came and picked us up, took us to my grandmother's house, who had power. She lives in a senior living community, so they had the power, thank goodness. And they lost their water on Tuesday or Wednesday, didn't get it back until Saturday, and we just got water back in our apartment today. Wow. Today. Wow. Okay, so you're talking about Louis, my husband, calls us the Teskimo tribe, okay? Teskimo. Because during the time frame that all that snow was on the ground, we were like in full survival mode, okay? So we went out, we grabbed we had the baby bath, scooping all the snow into the baby bath, taking it into the house, putting it inside of the tubs, and then boiling that down and making enough water just to flush the toilets. Okay. It was just crazy. And then Louis from the East Coast, so he's like, all of our family and relatives on the East Coast in New York and Massachusetts, they're just like, it was 3 inches of snow, guys. Wow, Texas.
Yeah, I know.
So what about you, Petra?
Well, I have to admit, I'm feeling a little bit weather whiplash, right? So Tuesday, exactly a week ago, I was in 4 layers of clothing, including my long silk underwear and sweaters and, coats. And today I'm in short sleeves and I have the windows open. It's 78 degrees outside. I mean, it's just wild. And so we lost our power on Monday. It kind of flickered Sunday night and we were like, oh, and then it was like, okay. But no, Monday when we woke up, it was gone. I'm not exactly sure when it went out. And we were out all of Monday. And we had our grandchildren coming on Tuesday for 48 hours because the first responders were all on extra hours, right? Because they knew it was going to be hard to get through the traffic and all of that, the snow and everything. So we were fortunate. We did not lose water. And so we have a ravine out back. So our survival mode was going outside and the last little bits of wood that we had, we were literally, Karen was hand sawing it into pieces that would fit in our fireplace. And she just declared that there was going to be somebody who was going to show up with a chainsaw. She put it out on Facebook. And sure enough, the next thing we know, we hear a chainsaw across the ravine. And a guy and his friend were over there taking out some downed wood. And she was like, hey. And so sure enough, he came over with his buddy and he was like, well, I'm happy to help. We drug up some downed wood that had been downed in those big storms a couple of years ago. We drug it up, and he was sawing it and went really fast. And we discovered he had a 10-month-old at home and a fiance, a pregnant fiance. And we were like, oh no, you have to take half this wood. So, load for his pickup truck, a load upstairs, a load. So we literally had a mound of wood in our house because we didn't know how long we were going to be without power, how long it was going to keep snowing. We knew there was a second storm coming in on Wednesday. We didn't want it all covered in. So we probably had a quarter, somewhere between an eighth and a quarter of a cord of wood, literally stacked up in our little condo. And of course we have a 10-month-old coming over and a 7-year-old coming over. So the space is even smaller. So we're covering it up with sheets so that nobody gets into it. Right. Grateful that we didn't lose water. Our good friend, Joseph from across the way, did lose water. So the next day we got a call, hey, our pipes have burst. He came over and filled up jugs of water. And then the next day he and his family were going to come over and take showers. But by that time, good enough, the insurance company had gotten on board and they were getting them to a hotel. Although he hadn't been able to find one personally. And in the meantime, on Wednesday, we got a call from CSLDallas that a giant burst of water had happened. And our 15,000 of our 25,000 square foot was flooded and under 3 to 6 inches of water, the entire 2 suites. And the way that we found out was it was literally running into our next door suite. So that was then a whole day of trying to get that water out of there and getting it closed up. And after that, it felt like for us, it was just checking in with people and trying to match up people. Do you have a place? Are you good? Who's got showers? CSLDallas was supposed to open on Wednesday as a warming station. Come use the kitchen, come take a shower. Well, we were flooded. That was like a no. So and all my plants out front have pretty much died, and they, because they ran the sprinkler, the condo ran the sprinkler the day before the snow hit. So every single solitary leaf and twig was sheeted with ice before it got the blanket of snow. And the blanket of snow would have actually been protection, but because it had been watered on in the freezing cold, like, I don't know who made that decision to not turn it off, just killed everything. So I feel like I'm in whiplash, right? Like, starting to be spring, then we had this tundra experience. And we were talking to community members who, like you, been out of power for a couple of days, and they're huddled in bed and pretty much crazy. So that's my story, Oscar.
Girl, it's been an experience. We lost power like 12 to 14 hours at a time. And then we would get it back for like maybe an hour. One time we only got it back for 20 minutes, and that was really upsetting. It was actually at certain points it got a little bit scary because it just felt so cold in the house. Right. And I remember just like trying to rest when we could, because the power came on at like 2 or 3 in the morning. We all got up and like started, cooking, making something, and heating the house to make sure the pipes don't burst. It got so cold at one point that I could feel the tear ducts in my eyeballs. I could feel how cold the water in my eyes were. Like, it was so frigid cold in the house. So it was an interesting time because I also got to practice what we talk about here. We were talking about practical spirituality. I actually got to, sit on the mat right back there, do some meditation and do some affirmative prayer. And I was able to stay calm throughout it all. And I feel like usually my husband, Sean, is one who's very anxious. And usually he would be very anxious in this. But he saw how calm I was. And he actually said, we're going to be okay. I think we got this. And I was like, we do got this. Like, we went out. We were like picking branches. We were like burning everything we could in the fireplace. So we made it. And I managed to stay relatively calm throughout. It got a little scary sometimes. But I just kind of, Go with the flow. We got this. We got this. All is well. And look, listen, no burst pipes in my house. We thought the pool was for sure destroyed, but it froze over. We just broke it apart the ice and it was fine. No burst pipes. Nothing is broken. Everything is totally fine. All is well. So yeah, it's just grateful for all of that.
Well, and that's what I've talked to a number of people about, right? As we've been checking in over and over and over again with different people. I mean, we've had people like Shakera without water for a week, without power for 5 days, and it's been an opportunity, like, you know, that old-fashioned saying, "Pray without ceasing," right? That's what it means, right? It means staying very diligent about one's consciousness and where we went with that consciousness. And so, you know, and we had 2 children that we were taking care of, and you can't spin out, you can't, and so that was really also helpful. And the practice, the ongoing practice, well, how do we, you know, how do we manage this? How do we make this fun? So I actually walked around with, I've got some cute pictures of Eiley and Arya, like, you know, that, like the comic strip, they're so bundled up they can hardly move. They're just, you know, like that, right? Then I've got Arya in my arms, and she's got a little unicorn hat on, and she's looking at me like, what? The little 10-month-old, but she was looking around, and Eiley got to make snow angel. She'd never done that before, and the next day we got to make a snowman. And, you know, and then thank God we were warm enough in the house, because we had we burnt every stick of wood that we chopped. We burnt every stick of wood. But I have to tell you that the day of chopping wood, that was the day that was the coldest in our place. I mean, we got down to I think 39 degrees in the house. And the fact that we had survival stuff to do really actually made that more palatable, because we weren't just sitting around going, oh my God, 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 what do we do, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing, is if we feel like we have some spiritual efficacy, for me, that translates into, well, there must be something I can do. If I can't chop wood, then I can go out and we can make snow angels, or we can, you know what I mean? And not just become paralyzed, because there were times our power flickered a number of times. I do think it went out for a few hours, you know, off and on throughout, but not enough to really, I mean, after what we had already experienced, it was like a no-brainer. And we would watch, or you come back on, or you come back on. But that activity, like I think for me, spirituality, a practical, positive spirituality keeps me from becoming paralyzed, because I do actually believe that if I am holding an positive expectation, that something does actually show up, whether it's something to do, or somebody to call, or some help, or helping another person. All of that really does happen. And we donated to some people on Facebook when we watched, you know, ceilings that had fallen in.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's just a mess. It's a gigantic mess.
Yeah.
So how did you handle it, Shakera? You had Samari and...
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna, tag on what you were just saying about that positive energy, because I felt that serious attitude of gratitude, and we turned it into an adventure. So I know it sounds a little ghetto, but we started roasting our breakfast sausages over the fire.
Yes.
We had a tent. Okay, we had a tent, and we set the tent up for Samari. We said camping time.
Yes.
So we did that in the beginning of it, you know, to just kind of make it fun. And then on the way to my auntie's house, my grandmother's house, remember I told you my auntie came and picked us up. I bought all the games that I had. So we had Uno Flip, which is like a different version of Uno. We bought Monopoly, and we bought this other cool card game, and we made the best of the time, you know, and so I feel like the universe just showed up and gave, you know, us the opportunity to look into the attitude of gratitude and what can you be grateful for. Because remember last week or the week before last, we talked about you get what you are, not what you want. And so we ended up having more and more reasons to be grateful. I mean, just in the middle of In the middle of this thing, we had all the food we needed. We were able to also give, we donated as well. We were able to be available to the people in the surrounding senior community. I mean, we were just really covered and protected, and I'm still just shaken up by that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we turned it into a fun time, though. I mean, I'm gonna make the best of every time. I'm gonna have fun.
Well, and that, I mean, and I love that, Shakira. I mean, isn't that we're always confronted with that, right? Am I just going to fold under it or really, it is awful. Nobody's pretending that it's not awful. That's not the point. It's not that it's not awful. It's that is that going to be the spiral? Or can we really find a way? While we were chopping wood, we had a gentleman come down the way. He was like, oh, is that firewood? Can I buy some firewood? And we were like, no, you can't buy our firewood. Come put your hands out and here, let us fill your arms up. He came back twice,
Right.
a lovely gentleman. And was like, no, you can't buy it. Here, let us give it to you. And that also, when we feel like we can give, we're not, that reminds us that I have something to give, right? And I don't have to hoard. I just only have this much wood. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have to hoard it. And that feeling of giving also opens the channels and the flow and that sense of possibility, as opposed to, oh my God, the world is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Right. I do have to say that I have a lot of opinions and frustration and perhaps even downright anger around the fact that Texas was so utterly unprepared. And I don't care how you slice it. I don't care what people are saying about it. There's no question about it that we're seeing the effects of climate change, and we're seeing the effects of corporate greed and political greed and individual greed. We can't be bothered to winterize the stuff. There's documentation from our 2011 storm that all of this was needed and nobody regulated it, nobody required it. I mean, and that's what government is for. That's what government is for, because we don't always make decisions in the interests of everybody. We are human, sometimes very human, foible-y people with our own agendas, and we tend to think about ourselves and our own people, right? And our own families and our own money and our own businesses. And we don't think about the impact. And from a spiritual point of view of oneness, this is unconscionable, and we cannot survive on that. And so it's the role of government to create the infrastructure that allows people to have lives and businesses to thrive and artists to create and children to grow up and right. And, and this whole fear about socialism just makes me crazy. And these are the kinds of things. I mean, people need water, sewer, internet, electricity, and healthcare. Really, it's not rocket science. And the opportunity to make a life for themselves and their families, right? And we can see the impact that it has on our people of color and the Black communities and the low-income communities. It is unconscionable. And if we practice a spirituality that's not only positive, but is built on an idea of oneness, and which, and the Christian teachings, which are so profound, love your neighbor as yourself. This is so far out of the realm of that kind of living our faith, right? Living our faith is not just an individual thing. Living our faith is how we are in integrity with our businesses and with our, and I mean, I even had to have a conversation with my son, and I'm like, even when our heat came down, we had our heat turned down. We had all our lights turned off. I didn't wash. I didn't use I did all the things that they asked us to do, not use the dishwasher, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I had a conversation with my son, and he was like, oh yeah, well, I'm sitting here in short sleeves in my house. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so then I got a big song and dance. Well, I have a baby and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Well, put the clothes on the baby and put socks on the baby and get a freaking jacket. What are you doing? And I mean, and one person at a time, but it's a cultural out picturing of this, I don't know, this, you know, okay, well, I'm going to just say one more thing and I'm going to stop because
More.
You're
welcome, soapbox.
I love when you get on your soapbox. I love it. More.
So I was raised Roman Catholic, right? And 7 deadly sins. Okay, really nonsense. We don't actually believe in sin. We don't believe in heaven or hell or any of those kinds of things. We do actually understand that there's a law of cause and effect. And as you show up, it is how it responds. Life responds. And so this is the law of cause and effect happening, right? And there's a reason why one of the 7 deadly sins is greed. Not because it necessarily makes you, because God gets mad at you, but because it absolutely destroys communities and the social fabric, and it destroys our own heart and soul when we're only about us and we're only about what we ourselves can get. And so, you know, there's so much value in all the spiritual traditions. They all offer something. If we can get out from underneath the convoluted, you know, dogma and stuff like that. I mean, there's a reason why those particular things are the 7 deadly sins. Not because God decreed it, but because this is how humanity evolves. This is how we become more of who we came here to be as loving beings expressing life. Okay, I'm done now.
I love that. I love when you get on your soapbox. It makes me so happy. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Go.
I know. I'm like, yes, queen, go, queen, work. Okay, so speaking of working and twerking, we're gonna bring this out. Are we ready for this?
Okay. Yes.
Say working and twerking.
Working and twerking. I did working and twerking. So last week got manifestation.
I shall not be twerking. I will leave it up to the two of you. I shall not.
I shall twerk very well.
Shakera and I got this. We'll do the twerking.
Okay,
no worries. We got it. All right, here we go, you guys. Let's see what happens this week. Ooh, it is mental health.
Oh, wow.
How fitting. All right, this week's topic, you guys, is mental health. Super fitting.
Well, I have to admit, I think that's why that positive, practical spirituality is so important. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Really? After a year of pandemic in Texas, which has not done very well, period. And we won't even go into that whole conversation. A friend of mine was telling me this story. Her adult children, they were in a grocery store on, I think it was Monday, right as all of this was hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in the grocery store, and they were in the back of the store, and all the lights went out. Absolute pitch dark. And the next thing she knows, the daughter-in-law was sharing the story. The next thing she knows, there's a woman somewhere close by who is all of a sudden like, are you kidding, God? Okay, now let me just tell you, there's been the pandemic and the this and the that and the blah, 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 blah. Are you kidding me, God? I'm a good person. I pray. Are you kidding me? Da, 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 da. And now the freaking lights go out. And she said the entire store just burst out in laughter. And it was so completely what everybody needed.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking the truth, baby. Speaking the truth.
Well, when they say you can talk to God.
Oh my
When they say you can talk to God, that's a perfect example. Don't even worry about where you are or what time it is. Just open your mouth and speak.
Right. And you know what? I mean, but isn't that what we were sort of all feeling? And I think, I think that mental health is so, what's the word I want? if we're not talking about clinical mental health, right? We're not talking about clinical depression or clinical schizophrenia or those kinds of things, but in general, mental health. I think that one of the cornerstones of mental health is the difference between hopelessness and hope. I know when I notice for my own life that my mental health is really challenged. When I feel stuck, I feel hopeless. I think, really, are you kidding? Like Job, one more thing, are you kidding me? Um, and um, and if I don't have the coping skills, whether they are psychological coping skills or spiritual, a spiritual place to stand, that for me, I think is one of the most critical pieces to ensure our mental health, to and for me to get out of, if I fall into depression or um, really feel yeah crazy in some way, the thing that helps me is hope, that I believe there's a way out, there's a way through. What about you guys?
Well, so I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks periodically. And I remember I was having rather specific, a nasty one in bed. I was just feeling the spiral happening. It was like just getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember that week, that month, our whole theme was about gratitude. And I remember laying in bed and just like, all right, just what's one thing right now that I'm grateful for? I have a warm bed. Start really basic. I have a warm bed. My husband is next to me. I have 2 little dogs who love me. I have a nice house. I'm clothed. I have food. Like, and so I just that. So then the anxiety spiral became like a gratitude spiral,
Wow.
and it took all of the charge, all of the angst out of it. And I was suddenly like, oh, I can breathe now. Oh, I'm fine now. So that's something that I swear by because it worked for me. It's like start naming off things that you're grateful for. Spotting, we talk about spotting the good, calling out the good.
Yes.
I immediately start doing that whenever I feel that, that inner voice ticking away about how everything's not great. So that's something that I use a lot. How about you, Shakira? Any tips?
Well, I too have issues from time to time with anxiety and depression. Um, and one of the major things I do is when I give myself a little time to feel,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's there to tell me something, you know,
Mm.
maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I'm going too fast. Maybe I need to release some repressed emotion instead of bottling it all up. And once I'm able to determine what that thing is, I spend that time with doing the thing, with slowing down, with self care, with a little bit of pampering or whatever it is that I need internally. Because I recognize those things as all symbols pointing to something that I need, or signposts pointing to something that I need to do for myself. And then also, whenever I feel like I need to express myself, I lean into the community of people, and this is important, that can support me moving out of that place, not just wallow with me in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because talking to the friends that are just all in their own stuff and they can relate and that's it, that while that is fine and well, it doesn't help me go from point A to point B to remembering that I'm not outside of my good. And that's something you've been teaching me, Dr. Petra, in these classes that we've been doing, is that I'm not separate from that thing, that good that I need or that I decide is good for me. And so having those connections, those elders, those people that are also on the spiritual path, those coaches or counselors or prayer partners to reach out to and to say like, hey, I'm in the middle of a thing, and can you hold on to this vibration for me until I can get to the same place, or seed into me that knowing that it is going to be fine, it is okay. And then I do look around my life too, and I give that gratitude. Sometimes journaling it out helps as well,
Mm.
for both of those things there.
Yeah, I think you say something really important, Shakira. I think it is we can't in our spirituality decide that it's going to be a long, steady uphill climb into nirvana, right? Shit's going to happen. It's just going to happen, and we're going to have those moments. And and having a positive attitude and a spiritual grounding does not mean we don't feel our feelings, but we know that our feelings are no more the truth of our being than our thoughts. And just as we have to look
Right.
at our thoughts and see where they're coming from and where what do they show us and what about where we have a false belief, right? The feelings are the same, and I think that's really important. Is to notice what is this and where does this come from? What is this feeling? And I worry sometimes that people, when they say, well, I just always follow my heart and my feelings, don't realize that so many of those feelings actually are lying to us because they
Yeah.
come from false beliefs and false, and ways of reacting and responding to life that we learned in our families. And yet, so what they're telling us is that old thing is still operative. But if we don't feel the feeling, we muscle on through, by God, I'm just going to be spiritual and happy and right. I have a friend who calls that polishing the turd. You don't polish the
Oh my goodness.
we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. It's like a turd is a turd. We don't need to polish it.
I
What we
love
need
that.
to do is like sweep it away.
Yeah. I love that.
And so feeling the feeling without making it who I am, right? That's so critical. And sometimes, yeah, and sometimes it's telling us something.
Wait, Petra,
It's
can you
really
dive deeper
important.
into that? Feeling the feeling, but knowing that it's not who I am. Dive a little
Well,
deeper into that.
well, yeah. So I don't know why this was such a revelation to me.
It was to me too.
Somewhere
You taught
along,
me this. You taught. It
somewhere
was to
along the
me.
line, I know, somewhere along the line, I realized, I think, well, I'm gonna do my spiritual practice. I'm gonna do my psychological work. I'm gonna what am. So then you have a feeling, and I think, well, what do I do with this feeling? I have to do something. I have to, analyze it and understand it and work with it. And da, 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 da. Well, they're called feelings for a reason. The only thing you have to do with a feeling is feel it. It's like this was like such a blinding flash of the obvious. I mean, oh my God. So if we think of, and if you look at children, they totally feel their feelings. And a real authentic feeling is something that's happening in your body. It's actually a physical thing that's happening in your body. And our children teach us it lasts about 90 seconds. Anything beyond 90 seconds is the fact that we now have a thought about the feeling. And we now move into a conversation about it with ourselves. And we either don't want to feel it, we don't like feeling it, we want to suppress it, we want to, or we just get caught in it and we start, however we get caught in it, whether we're analyzing it or we're just, oh my God, I feel so terrible, I feel so terrible, I feel so terrible, I feel so terrible, right? And we're just continuing to produce that terrible feeling. But a feeling is really, it's like a wave, right? And so if we're willing to feel it, it rises. It's terribly uncomfortable. We don't like anything about it, right? But a wave rises and then crashes over and recedes. If you think of the tide, it rises and then it recedes, and the wave that crashes on the shore and then it recedes. And so to learn to allow that, and not, that means really allow it. And so I think as adults, my experience is it's not just 90 seconds, right? Because we're adults, we're a lot more complicated than that. But if I have to go and lay on my bed and wail for 30 minutes, and to then really wail for 30 minutes, to sob and to allow that out without a lot of conversation around it. It's the conversation around it that causes us to own it. And then it becomes me, right? Oh, I'm so sad. No, actually, I'm having a sad feeling. I am a radiant, magnificent being of love and light, period, end of sentence, that never changes, doesn't matter what the circumstances are. right? And so I have thoughts, I have feelings, and I have a body, but that's not the truth of the essential truth, right? And so that, that's why we do our meditation practice, gives us just that little tiny bit of distance that allows us to go, wow, this is really, I need to have this feeling, feel this feeling, be with it, but it's not me. And then I think that's the other thing why people are afraid of feeling their feelings is, as adults, because we haven't felt previous feelings, right? They just pile on top. And I know that there was a time when I was totally afraid to feel my grief because it was overwhelming. Because the minute I felt the grief, what happened is all of the unfelt grief all came pouring out. And I thought, my God, I'm just going to be this way forever. But just like thoughts, feelings come and go. And if we can trust that, right, and let them out, no matter how long it takes, if it takes days or weeks or even months, there's a release that comes that brings us into the now moment. So now when I have grief, it's real grief about this thing that's happening now, and it doesn't have all that baggage associated with it, right? But if I don't feel the feeling, right? So I have learned how to feel my anger, and I'll pound on my chair, or speak loudly to express it, but not. But I'm responsible for, right, how it lands. I'm responsible for that. I'm not doing damage or making a mess. But I can certainly say I am so freaking angry. I'm really angry about this. And I can stop my feet if I need to, and I can pound on my, or go upstairs and get the bat and pound on the bed. Because the feelings are, as Shakera said, they're in response to something. They're telling us something. So let me just say one other thing about that. I think the other thing is, we only want to, as spiritual people, we only want to feel good feelings because we're having a positive spirituality. And so we make grief, anger, and depression wrong. Bad. They're bad feelings, and we want to avoid feeling them. So this is this is just the gospel according to Petra. So I think grief is the other side of love. I think that if we didn't love, we wouldn't grieve, and so it's nonsense. Grief is not a bad feeling. I mean, it's uncomfortable. We don't like it. We don't want the people that we love or the things that we love to disappear, but it is a testament to our love. The more love we have, the deeper we grieve. I think that anger is the other side of truth. And we become angry when it's clean anger. When it's clean anger, we become angry because truth has been violated. An injustice has been done. A boundary has been broken. There is something really happening. And anger is the appropriate response because it brings it to the surface. It moves the situation out and back, gives us a little distance to be able to say, no, this is not in alignment with spiritual truth. And I think depression is the other side of bliss. I don't think that we're designed in our human experience to have bliss all the time. I think we are designed to experience the presence of life as the truth of our being, but having bliss all the time would actually flatline it. And depression is the other side of that, just like winter is the other side of the summer. And winter's necessary. Winter, Thomas More, in his book, Care of the Soul, he calls depression the cool, dark winter of the soul. And in winter, what's happening in winter is all of the roots are growing. All of the roots of all the trees and all the bulbs and everything perennial, they're all growing. We just can't see it. And so in our times of withdrawal and depression and quiet, there's something happening, right? And we can allow that. Sometimes it's a transition time from, something is over and we're sad about that, but nothing new is yet on the horizon or whatever it is. But to give ourselves permission to be in that space. In our culture today, man, if you don't have the pedal to the metal all the time, there's something wrong with you. right? And we're in the celebrity sales razzle dazzle culture, everything. You got to be on. Oh my God, right? And that is exhausting. And no wonder the United States has so much depression. We're exhausted, and then we're constantly stimulated, right? And so depression is the antidote to that. Now, again, we're not talking about clinical depression, or that's the, so and we avoid those feelings because we don't like the way they feel. And yet there's such value in each one of them if we will allow ourselves simply to feel them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh my God, I love that so much. I never saw like the two sides like that. I never saw the flip side of that. That's incredible. Yeah, I'm really glad that we landed on this one because, like, I just had a conversation with Sean about this. We just read an article that in Japan, more people have died from suicide than from the coronavirus during this pandemic. Like, they just can't, like, it's just,
They can't cope.
yeah, they just can't cope. It's just, and I think there is also the shame. There's still this stigma, this shame attached to mental health and mental wellness. And I don't understand why we still put that on. Why? When you've seen that people are, they literally commit suicide because they just can't, they don't want to seek help because of the stigma. They can't cope because we're in a global pandemic. Like, what are people supposed to do then? People feel so alone. And which is why I love CSLDallas, is that we remind you that you are never alone. Our community, anybody who needs anything from us, we got open arms. We're literally ready to be your family. So, what is it even to say? I read that and I was just like, I don't even know how to process this article. Because this is staggering. That in a global pandemic, Japan lost more people from suicide than the actual virus.
Right. I did not know that. I hadn't read that article. And then you think about the epidemic of teenagers in the US that are committing suicide.
Exactly.
And the epidemic of our veterans that are committing suicide. It's why, that is a great question. Why is it a stigma? And where did that come from? That we always have to be happy and on, and I think some of that comes with this completely crazy notion that there's something called normal. And that you have to be that, whatever that is, whatever your cultural sense of normal is, whatever that is, you're supposed to be that. And we spend an enormous amount of time. I can't tell you how many people come into spirituality and they have a laundry list of things about themselves they feel they need to fix to become spiritual. What if part of being spiritual was to stop being normal and start being yourself? Right? And for some people, like, I'm an introvert, so I have the resting bitch face, right? I just do. It's terrible. It's awful. And there's not a thing I can do about that. I work on it constantly because in our culture today, it's not okay. If resting bitch face looks like you're aloof and angry and, whatever. No, what it means is I'm an introvert. I'm like having my own little private experience. Like, I'm totally, whatever it is. And so there's so many ways in which I am not normal. I'm not a normal minister because I'm not motivated to do pastoral care. That's why I have lovely, lovely, lovely practitioners and lots of people in our community that do pastoral care. That's not my thing. It took me the longest time to stop trying to be a normal minister. I mean, I burned out in my first community so badly, I just about took it down in flames. I took myself down in flames because I kept trying to be a normal minister, like whatever that was supposed to be, whatever the box was that I had been given about that. And it was like, yeah, no, not so much. So, every time I swear, somebody's shocked, and like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm no longer trying to be normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of it. I think it's that sense of alienation and isolation and not belonging, and how not being normal has become stigmatized. But if the whole of humanity and every way we've ever studied humanity is on a bell curve, there's only one person at the top of the bell curve, right? Everybody else is on one side or the other. So 99.9% of the people are not normal.
Yeah.
And yet we've so stigmatized that.
Yeah, you know, I see that as not fitting a mold.
Yes.
Like you just you don't fit, but you force yourself to fit,
Yes.
and it's not working, and people are still calling you out, and people are still judging and shaming. And so, but
And then you internalize that judgment and shame.
exactly.
Nobody might be judging and shaming you,
Exactly.
but you've internalized it. Hang on, my computer is doing something. It's talking to me.
Oh.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. It just like whoosh, you all disappeared. Shakera, what do you think about this?
I'm just like, I'm ready to sip this tea, ring this bell. Cause you say what? Okay, cause I got M&Ms. We finna throw a whole party over here
Yes.
listening to you. Because I'm thinking about it, and I always say like this. I feel like people somehow unconsciously dehumanize each other, and I don't know why we do that. But I always think about the fact that, like, even as a spiritual life coach, I have my days. I have my straight up days where I can't get out of bed and I don't want to deal. So I can really understand where some of my clients come and they talk to me about those things. But like the doctor gets sick, guys, and the doctor has a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and the healer has a healer.
Mm.
And so it's like there's so many things we have to remember that no matter where you are. I remember reading an article about a minister, not a Science of Mind minister, but a minister that committed suicide just before the pandemic. Okay. And he's been continuously telling people about his struggle and praising God and all of these things and just holding on to God, but still got to that place, of complete release of himself or his physical person. And I just, it hits me. It hits me in a way that I don't know. I'm not gonna be emotional on this call. But I feel that deep within, just if we would just take the time out to know that each and every person that we come into contact with is a human being, and is more than that, right? But is deserving of our compassion, deserving of the highest and best ideals surrounding that person. If we would just recognize that you never know outside of what you see on the outside, what they're going through on the inside, if we could just make that the norm, I feel like the world would be a bit different. I think the way that things are showing up in the world with all of these people going through mental health issues and feeling isolated, it would just be different. You would just open up to communicating with and about, these things. Um,
Well,
I'm I'm just feeling all of that.
yeah. And I think that the
Yeah.
ability to see each other's humanity and really praise each other's humanity is available to us when we recognize that each person is a being, is an expression of the one,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yes.
it, even if you go, Karen and I went to the Arboretum here in Dallas last year, and we saw a whole bed of, I think they were black-eyed Susans, which are basically yellow daisy-like flowers with a black cone in the middle and a black ring around the cone, and then the yellow, right? And so, great, okay, black-eyed Susans. Okay, and then we got to looking at them really closely. Do you know that none of them are the same? Like every black-eyed Susan had a different size brown ring. Some of them didn't have one at all. And yet they were all black-eyed Susans, and they were beautiful. And they were like, oh, and nobody was pointing at one going, well, you're not really a real black-eyed Susan. What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, so sometimes we show diversity as, oh, there's the pink flower in the middle of the yellow field. Okay, and be yourself. But here was a whole garden, a whole bed of the same flower, and yet every single flower was unique and individual. And that is that's the multiplicity of life that the infinite needs to be itself, to express itself. And no two are duplicated, right? And so when we can see that and celebrate that and really let people be who they are and let ourselves be who they are. So we had a gentleman in our community for probably 12 years, an older gentleman. He was in his 60s, and he had a very love-hate relationship with his 80-year-old mother, and blah, blah, blah. But the most interesting thing about him was that he was a physicist, doctoral student, and had been for 25 years. And he'd spent the last 17 years writing a dissertation and seeking to engage with physicists all over the country. Truthfully, Paul was on a spectrum of some sort. Very, very, very difficult to communicate, very socially awkward, very challenging. He would corner people and then, talk about his theory about whatever for hours on end. And our community kind of had a little, right? So I do a Sunday morning class on Science Mind, and he would come to the Sunday morning class, and then he would stand up, and then he would talk. And for 5 or 7 minutes, he would talk, and I would have to listen really carefully for what the question actually was. But if you listen to him, there was always a question, and it was always a really interesting question. And so I learned to really pay attention. Oh, I see what you're saying, right? And we would get into this just amazing conversation, and you could watch people's go bam, bam, bam around the room as we were having this amazing conversation. And after, I don't know, 6-8 months of that, people stopped avoiding him in the hallway. They stopped avoiding talking to him, right? And I had a lot of people say, you're so patient, you're so blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is a child, this is God expressing as this. And all we have to do is pay attention. That's it. That's all that's required. And if I can pay attention enough, every once in a while, I didn't get it. Say, Paul, I'm sorry, I'm just not getting it. I'm sorry, I'm not, And he was fine with that. He was, because I would really, And so I think he must have been with us for 10 years. He then eventually moved away, but he'd been with us for 10 years, and we had a new member Sunday, and we just invited people to come up. Why are you a member here? Why are you a member at CSLDallas? And different people came up and, laughed and cried and, whatever. And we were running out of time, and the very last person was Paul, and he came up to the microphone, and he kind of, he would sing in the choir, and kind of, shuffled up to the microphone, and he, I'm accepted here.
Wow.
And I said, we're doing our work right. We're doing our work right. Right? That was a moment. That was a moment for me. That was, that's it. That's it. Because we give each other permission then to be ourselves. And ourselves are beautiful and radiant. And yes, we want to get out from underneath the shit of our lives so that the joy of the uniqueness that we are gets to express, right? Of course you want to learn and grow, but part of that is part of who we are. That was just really a moment. And I think that's what we're about. And I think that's what our spiritual teaching is about. And I think that's what quite frankly, I think that's what all spiritual teachings are about.
Yeah.
Right. That's why the teachings of Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself. Actually, there is no great spiritual tradition that does not have some version of that.
Exactly.
Even philosophy, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Don't do unto others as you wouldn't want them to do unto you, right? These are in every philosophy, in every spiritual tradition, because people deserve that. They deserve that for their humanity, and they get to have it because of the truth of who they are.
Yeah. Wow.
So stop trying to be normal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what's fascinating is that like I spent so much time trying to fit in with society and like how do I be less flamboyant? How do I be like everybody else? And the second I stopped doing any of that shit, I just dropped that shit, is when my career actually took off. Is when my life kind of took off, and all my relationship with friends deepened, my relationship with my parents, and my brother, everything just kind of like. I feel like I was starting to live for the first time when I was just like, okay, this is just who I am. I can't. I don't know how to pretend anymore. It's like literally killing me. So this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And that's when I started kind of living my life. It felt like I was living for the first time. So I tell people that story all the time. Like, all the things that you think make you super weird is exactly what people love you for. So stop buying into sort of the social programming of this is weird, this is bad, you don't fit the mold. No, all those things are actually incredible things. Yeah, so that's that's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way for sure.
Yeah, because we're not cogs in a machine.
Yeah.
Right. And when you think about, not Henry David Thoreau, sorry, I have a book about him I've been reading to my granddaughter, Henry Ford and the assembly line, right? That was part of the Industrial Revolution, and has done more damage because we have seen ourselves then as cogs in the wheel of the machine of society. And of course, before that, so much of it was caste and culture, and before that, it was religion, and fitting in, and being acceptable to God in some way, and then not only all the people that are other, but then just think about women having to fit in certain ways and not being acceptable, and being strong or whatever it is. It's just crazy. But I think that I think humanity is evolving, right? I think we're evolving, and I think I think, Oscar, you said something really important. It's killing me, right? And didn't we start this conversation out with people in Japan committing suicide?
Yeah.
And that's right.
Right. Yeah. And I think what's also pretty awesome is that as you give yourself that permission and you set yourself free, you give other people that same opportunity, because just your energy, Oscar, fills up a room, right? And creates this environment. And so that's something that's been on my mind as you've been talking, Petra, and you too, Oscar, is that we become like a walking, living, breathing environment for other people. Like we are the environment for everyone to express their unique and unique beauty and identity, and to feel safe. And that's one of the things that I love about CSLDallas, is that I was looking for a space that I could be myself. That I didn't have to hide in isolation anymore. I didn't have to stop talking because nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. And I found my folks, and I have other people outside of CSLDallas that I can also say what I have to say. But those are like my tight-knit, these are my people. But then I have a community of different expressions and different types of people that I can also contribute my piece to the puzzle. And I think it's heaven on earth when you can have that experience, when you can dialogue, when you can look upon a mirror and say, I see me and you 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 and you, and we're all somewhere connected. And so, I think that as we set ourselves free, we become that space for others to do the same, that space and that light, that beacon, I'm grateful to both of you for doing that for me and for many other people.
Oh my gosh, Shakera, I love you so much. You guys, we're out of time. This is CSL. This is what we're all about. You guys, if you want to learn more about CSLDallas, you got all our information at CSLDallas.org. We hope that you give us a like on this YouTube view. We hope you like the channel, you subscribe and follow us. We are here every single Monday at 1 p.m.
Tuesday.
Say what?
Tuesday.
I've lost my mind. Tuesday. Say what? Tuesdays at 1 p.m. But then throughout the week, we got new videos uploaded. So make sure you subscribe and like the video to keep up with all of the stuff happening here at CSLDallas. Listen, you are accepted. You are loved here. You have literally found your tribe here. If you want to learn more about what we're about, check us out at our website, and also DM us. We're literally open to you guys. So thank you for all of our viewers today. Thank you, Lahoma. Karen was here. Lametra was chatting it up. I love it.
Lamitra.
Yes, Lamitra, you better work. Okay. Hey, I love you guys. I love you so much.
So much fun.
So we will see you
Thank
guys
you.
next week.